In a quiet corner of a small town, a routine trip to the local store turned into a life-threatening encounter for one elderly man. A group of rowdy bikers, drunk on bravado, started bullying him in the parking lot. They didn't know who they were messing with. As the insults flew, the old man stood his ground, but behind him was something they didn't see coming. His son, a highly decorated leader of SEAL Team 6, was on his way, and he wasn't about to let these thugs get away with it. But would he arrive in time to stop the chaos, or would the bikers push things too far? Tensions are high, and a storm is brewing. The stage is set for a showdown no one saw coming. Stick around to find out what happens when the tables turn in a way no one expects. The bikers, a rough crew known for their reckless behavior, had been causing trouble around town for weeks. No one dared to stand up to them, not out of fear, but because they had gotten used to letting things slide. But this time was different. The elderly man wasn't just anyone. He was a former Marine, tough as nails, and with a heart that wouldn't back down. He had seen his share of danger, but never imagined it would come to this, being harassed by a gang in broad daylight. As he tried to keep his cool, his mind raced. He knew his son had made a name for himself in the Navy, but he never imagined his son's reputation would be the one thing that might turn the tide. The bikers weren't just pushing an old man. They were about to learn that messing with the wrong family could come with consequences far beyond what they could handle. The lead biker, a hulking figure with tattoos covering his arms, stepped closer to the elderly man, his voice dripping with venom. "You don't belong here, old man. You should know better than to mess with us." The others laughed, egging him on, their eyes glinting with malice. But the old man's face remained calm, his weathered hands steady. He knew they were trying to provoke him, but he wasn't about to give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. Meanwhile, his son, Captain Jack West, was still miles away, unaware of the storm brewing. But Jack's instincts had always been sharp. A phone call earlier that morning from his father had raised a few alarms. It was a casual check-in, but something in his father's voice had felt off. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, and he was making his way back to town just in case. Back at the store, one of the bikers pushed the old man, shoving him hard against the wall. It was clear they weren't backing down. As the old man staggered but regained his footing, his mind raced. Could he hold out until Jack arrived? Or would this be a battle he couldn't win alone? The tension was suffocating, and with each second that passed, the air seemed to thicken. Somewhere in the distance, the roar of a motorcycle engine cut through the stillness of the afternoon. But was it too late? The air was thick with tension as the storm clouds gathered, blocking out the setting sun. Every sound, even the rustle of leaves, felt amplified in the stillness. Inside the abandoned warehouse, the only light came from the flickering lamps overhead, casting long, ghostly shadows across the concrete floor. Tessa's breath came in short, sharp bursts. "You really think you can stop this, Tessa? You're nothing, just like the others." Her grip tightened on the revolver. Every instinct told her to run, to hide, but she stood her ground. This was it. No more games. No more running. A voice, soft yet filled with malice, floated through the silence, cutting into her thoughts. "You think you're the hero here? You're just a pawn. It's too late to change anything." Her throat tightened. Was it true? Was she just playing into his hands all along? She shook her head, forcing herself to focus. This was bigger than the lies he fed her. She couldn't let doubt creep in, not now. The darkness in the room felt suffocating, as if it were closing in, every corner hiding something unseen, something deadly. Jason stepped forward, and the flickering light caught a gleam in his hand. It was the knife, the same one he had used to tear apart everything she had loved. Her stomach churned. She couldn't let him get it any closer. Then, without warning, there was a loud crash from behind her. A sudden explosion of noise that sent her heart racing. She spun around just as a figure emerged from the smoke, and her breath caught in her throat. It was Alex, but it wasn't the Alex she remembered. The warm, friendly smile, the voice that always reassured her. This was something darker, something she barely recognized. His eyes were cold, distant, and he moved like a predator closing in on prey. "Tessa," he murmured, his voice almost a whisper, "you don't know what you've gotten yourself into." Tessa's mind spun, the weight of the moment crashing down on her. She had trusted Alex. She had thought him to be her ally. But now she had no idea who was on her side, who was playing what game, and who might be pulling the strings from the shadows. She couldn't afford to let herself be distracted, but the question gnawed at her. Was Alex part of Jason's plan all along? Was she just another piece in a game she couldn't possibly understand? The room seemed to close in on her as her fingers trembled around the revolver. Every movement felt too slow, every thought too heavy. The walls were closing in, and her breath came faster, each exhale echoing off the concrete like a countdown. Jason's laugh broke the silence, a chilling sound that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. "You still don't get it, do you? It's already too late. You've already lost." Her pulse quickened, her mind racing for an answer, for a way out. There had to be something she missed, some way to turn the tables. She just had to find it. Tessa's mind spun in chaos, trying to make sense of the words stung. Each one echoed like a cold slap to her face. She didn't want to believe it. She refused to. She had been fighting this, fighting them for too long. But now, with the barrel of a gun aimed at her and Jason's twisted grin in the background, Tessa couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she was outmatched. Her fingers began to tremble again, and she could feel the weight of the revolver in her hand. There was only one option left, but it came with its own terrifying consequences. Before she could decide whether to act, Alexa's voice broke through the tension, cold and unrecognizable. "It's over, Tessa. You're not getting out of here. Not this time." The words landed like a blow, and for a moment, everything went still. She glanced back at him, her stomach turning in disbelief. The man who had been her friend, who had stood by her, was now her enemy. Had she misread everything? Or had he always been playing a different game? Tessa's mind was spinning. Too many lies. Too many betrayals. Was she even standing on the right side anymore? The woman in front of her took another step closer, her eyes gleaming with a chilling certainty. "You don't know who I am, do you? But I know who you are, Tessa. I know exactly what you've done." Tessa's breath hitched as the woman's words hit her like a punch. The realization came to her like a flash of lightning, too sudden to comprehend at first. The woman was connected to Jason, to Alex, to everything. She wasn't just some stranger. She was part of the very network that had orchestrated all of this. The woman smiled slightly, as if savoring the moment. "I've been waiting for this. For you to realize just how far the rabbit hole goes." The walls around Tessa seemed to close in even more. She had always thought she was in control of the situation, that each choice she made would lead her closer to the truth. But now it felt like the truth was slipping through her fingers, like sand in a storm. And then it hit her, the horrible, gut-wrenching realization. The storm was never meant for her to survive. She had been nothing more than a pawn, a piece in a game too big for her to understand. The woman raised her gun higher, and Tessa's body tensed. This was it. The moment she had been dreading had finally come. Would she fight her way out? Or would the truth, whatever it was, finally crush her completely? But before Tessa could make any decision, Alex stepped forward, his face shadowed with something darker than before. The room fell into an uneasy silence, and all Tessa could do was wait, her breath held tight in her chest, her fingers trembling, as she wondered just how deep the betrayal ran. Tessa's mind was reeling, the weight of everything she'd learned crashing down on her all at once. The woman's gun, still trained on her, seemed like the final, irrevocable end to a chapter she'd been desperate to close. Her heart hammered in her chest, her fingers aching around the revolver. But even in the face of all this, she couldn't bring herself to surrender. Not now. Alex stepped forward again, his footsteps slow, deliberate. His eyes, once warm with shared memories, were now cold.